Hey everybody, looks like I'm live and I am on here for our weekly sales training. And so I'll give a couple of seconds here for people to join. And today we are talking about how to control the sales conversation. So this is an important topic and something that I know a lot of people struggle with. Hey, Pat, how you doing out there? Susan, nice to see you. Giving it just another couple of seconds for our people who are going to be joining us live to get on here. I see Linda. Hi, Linda. It's a beautiful day here in sunny Florida, somewhere around 90 degrees. I know most of you are not experiencing this kind of heat, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. So, all right. All right, I have a few notes, and we are recording this so that for those of you who are tuning in to listen to the recording, you'll be getting that. So I'm not going to wait a long time before I get started here. It's crappy here today. Well, what do you want? You guys are up in Canada, it gets cold quick. But that's why I just keep going further south because I like to be warm. And so, you can see I'm still in the t-shirt and enjoying the flip-flops and the whole bit. Okay, so let's jump into this. So anybody who is hearing this for the first time, meeting me for the first time, don't know who I am. I am Janet Clark. I am the CEO of the Freedom Shift. And most importantly, I am the head of the High Ticket Sales Alliance. And so we focus on selling transformational programs for coaches, consultants, service providers. So I match up high ticket sales people who are trained in my HeartFlow sales process with those of you who are out there who are at the point where you're thinking about shifting gears and outsourcing your sales. So anyway, enough said about that. Today we are going to be talking about one of the important things for all of you to know, whether you are a salesperson or whether you are a coach, consultant, service provider who is selling your own programs. And that is, how do you conduct your strategy call in such a way that you actually get to the point where you have led the prospect to make a decision? And one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of people get really confused about what this sales call is really all about. And a lot of times when people are doing their own sales calls, coaches, consultants, service providers, they fall into the trap of making it a coaching call or trying to make it a coaching call. And trying to do a coaching call and a sales closing call all combined is a recipe for disaster. So let's talk about what definitely works. So the sales conversation, it can't be manipulative, okay? One of the things that is really important to understand is, of course, as salespeople, we love to sell. And the truth of the matter is that prospects love to buy. People love to buy. But nobody wants to feel like they're manipulated or coerced into buying something. They always want to feel like it's something that was their idea, that they had the opportunity to come to the conclusion themselves that this was a really good option for them. So how do we do that? Well, it's important to remember that you are the expert and you can lead them through this process if you do learn how to do it, right? And you want to be able to do that because that makes for the opportunity for them to actually make a clear decision, and you get them to the point where they want to make that decision. And that's your job. Because if they knew how to solve this problem that you were on there talking about, then obviously they would have already solved it. So it's realizing and recognizing that the most important thing that happens, or the reason why they're on the call, is because they don't know how to solve the problem. And so they are looking for somebody to come in there take leadership and show them the direction that they can go to get where they want to go. So if you have followed any of my trainings in the past, you already know that whenever I teach something about sales, the first thing that I teach you, and the first thing that is always the first step, is working on you and understanding how important your confidence is in any aspect of getting good at sales. It always starts with you. So a lot of people are always out looking for techniques and tactics, when if they focused on making themselves more confident, then they would dramatically change their results. So as always, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you can take leadership of the call just by being super confident. So one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that the person getting on the call with you is relying on you. My phone rings every time I get on one of these things. Drives me crazy. Sorry about that. So they're looking for you to take leadership, and they want you to exhibit that confidence. And I call that you're letting them borrow your confidence. So how do you get more confident? Because if you're feeling that or not. Okay, so there's three things that you can do to increase your confidence. The first is obviously to get a mentor. Get a sales mentor who can help you to really see the value that you're bringing to the table as a salesperson. And whether that's selling your own programs or selling somebody else's programs. Because until we can see our value through the eyes of somebody else, it's just really hard for us to see it for ourselves. One of my mentors calls that, it's something they got from Coca-Cola, or I don't even know where it came from, but through the company Coca-Cola, there was a saying that was, you can't read the label from inside the bottle. So very often, when you're selling a program and you need to be super confident in yourself, you don't always see the value that you personally are bringing to that conversation. And that's what a mentor is going to help you to do. Okay, so that's number one. Now, whether you're a coach, consultant, service provider, that's even more reason why you need to be able to really see your value. I always say it's easier to sell someone else's program first than it is to sell your own, because you learn how to, it's easier for you to see somebody else's value sometimes than it is your own. But if you're a salesperson, you also want to see where your expertise and your value are going to shine through for this prospect. So confidence is huge. Get a mentor, figure out how to start seeing yourself through somebody else's eyes. The second thing is you have to be very clear on the value proposition of the solution you're representing. So if you're selling a program, then you have to be, I call it having conviction. You have to have like this strong conviction that this program is amazing. And that involves product knowledge. So if you're a salesperson, you have to know without a shadow of a doubt that this program is really good, this program that you're selling. And obviously, if you're the person delivering it, you already know it's good, but you have to exude that conviction. There can't be doubt. Doubt is just a killer in a sales leadership role. And then the third thing is what I always call curiosity. You have to genuinely want to figure out what this prospect is going through and how this program is going to help them. And that healthy curiosity, not curiosity like, how can I manipulate this person, but curiosity for like, how can I really add value here? How can I help this person? What's really underneath what they're telling me? So that's the first part, which is working on you. So let's move on a little bit more to some of the tactics and the techniques here. So so we talked about the confidence, and the second thing is to really look at how are you going to establish your leadership when you get on the call. And there's a few ways that you can do that. Now, the first is to have a definite time that you are going to start and end that call, and absolutely stick with that. So that means you have to show up on time, and you have to make sure that you establish with the prospect how long you're going to spend with this person, how long you guys are going to spend together. And you set that agreement up front so that this isn't some open-ended run-on thing that goes on for 2 hours and you have this great conversation, but you got nowhere with it. So you want to establish up front that, we have 45 minutes, and then you want to talk about the agenda. So you want to be the person who lets the prospect know. So we've set aside this time. We have 45 minutes on this call today, and here's how I'd like us to go forth, right? I'm going to be asking you some questions. We're going to be determining what's going on with you. We're going to look at where you want to go and how you want to get there. And at the end of the call, I'm going to give you some recommendations. And I may invite you to join, this high-level program, or I may ask you, recommend that you do something different. But either way, I'd like us to agree that we're going to make a decision at the end of this call, one way or another, that either this high ticket, you might not want to call it that, but this transformational program is for you, or you're going to go in another direction. So that allows the person to relax a little bit because they know that you've got a plan for the call, and they don't have to start figuring out what they're supposed to ask you, what they're supposed to say, because a lot of people, believe it or not, they're nervous when they get on these calls and they don't know what to expect. So they like to know that somebody is in control of the call. And you want to make sure that you do have an agenda. So part of what I believe is that the agenda needs to be a flow. There needs to be a way that you're going to flow through your conversation. And if you, you may already have a process that you've used before and it works for you. And that's fine as long as you make sure that you stick with, keep that on track. So I use the HeartFlow sales conversation. I have the, just a blank blueprint, more or less, so that I can keep notes and know that the conversation is staying on track. So I don't use scripts because I feel that when we use scripts, we're so much in tune with what we're going to say. And we've already got this whole pre-programmed thing that we're going to say that it takes away from our ability to really listen to what the prospect is saying. So make sure you have some kind of a flow chart or a blueprint for how you want to your call to flow. Now, if you want me to actually send you this, so I have this blueprint, and I actually have a little cheat sheet that tells you how to use the blueprint. If you're interested in that, it's something that I typically offer in my high ticket sales accelerator program, but I'm happy to send that to you. So all you have to do is write HeartFlow, all one word, in capital letters in the comments, and I will make sure that you get a copy of that. Okay, so you've got a flow of how you want your conversation to go. And so that's the second thing. So number one was your confidence, and really make sure that you work on that. Number two is know how you're going to flow through your call and let your prospect know how you intend for the call to go. And then third is the ask great questions. And I can't emphasize enough that the questions that you ask have to come from the responses that they give you. So even though I couldn't give you a list of 20 or 30 or 40 different types of questions, obviously all that's are open-ended and start with who, what, when, where, why, how. Those are the type of questions you ask. But the most important thing to know is that you don't just pepper people with questions. So the questions have to flow based upon what they say to you when you're on the call. So the thing that's really important to realize is that the way they answer the question allows you to go deeper to another level. So you always want to explore the response that they gave you. And if you've listened to any of my other trainings, you know that there's always a why behind a response. And sometimes that why could actually go 3 layers deep and maybe even more, but at least 3. So when you start asking great questions, that's going to elicit a response. And the more you can get your prospect to actually do the talking, the more effective it's going to be for you to lead that conversation to the next stage of your process. So remember that the questioning part is hugely important, and don't rush through that, because when you do, you don't really get the objections answered. So part of what I teach people to do is during the question asking stage, you want to actually dig deep into things that you know are common objections. So if you're running into objections on your sales call, which are things like, well, I'm going to have to check with my spouse or my partner, then you're going to want to bring that up prior to ever laying out an offer. So in your questioning, you're going to be saying something like, if we can figure out a way to solve this problem and we can get you a solution to that, who else are you going to need to bring into making this decision? Who else is involved with you in your business, or who else is involved in your personal decisions that you make about investing in your growth or your next or solving a solution to this problem. So those are kinds of things that you're going to do. You can get into money during that time without having to really give the pricing for the program, but by asking things about what other programs they've invested in. What level have they invested in? What level do they think they would need to invest in to actually get the solution that they want? So there's a lot of different ways that you can talk about the money conversation. And I actually talked a lot about that in last week's training, so I'm not going to go deep into that again. If you don't have that and you want it, you can also just put something in the comments and say, I like the link to that training about how to overcome objections, because that was what we talked about last week. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to really engage with them during this questioning stage. And remember that as long as you're the person asking questions, you're controlling the flow of the process. Now, one of the things that can happen is that sometimes people will get off track. So they will start telling you stories that really are irrelevant to the process. So your job is really going to be to bring them back on track. And you do that by saying something like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but let me just recap what I heard you say when I asked you X. So you succinctly rephrase the answer to the question and kind of eliminate having them go down this path of telling you the long story. And, and other things you can do is say, well, we do want to keep this on track. So I think I understand what you said about that is that correct? So you're just kind of succinctly qualifying that you did understand the answer, and that kind of letting them know that the rest of the story is kind of not that important to this particular process. And you can remind them, we do want to be mindful of our time here, and I do want to make sure that I can get enough of the important issues that are facing you so that I can really understand them. So let's kind of stay on track here, right? And I mean, there's just different ways to do it with different people. And again, it really, I call it making that heart connection, because sometimes you do have to kind of cut them off a little bit, but you do it in a loving way by reminding them that you have a time aspect that you're trying to get through, and that there is actually an agenda here. And, you don't want to go too far deep into or off course. Now, I can tell you too that one of the things that sometimes happens, because we know that on a sales call, we kind of want to dig for the pain, and then we want to determine where they're trying to get to and bridge the gap. Sometimes what happens when there's a lot of pain and they get to really talk about it a lot, it's almost like a catharsis. And after they've had this opportunity, if you're too open to receiving the big story, that they actually feel so much better because they've unloaded this, that they're not feeling the need to actually get the help. So there's a fine line there between getting to the pain and then allowing them to kind of work themselves through it. And that's where a good salesperson learns to take that control back, because you don't want people to come off the phone saying, oh my God, I feel so much better now because I got all that off my heart and my chest, and now I think I'm okay. Because truly, they're not okay. And it's a momentary thing. But you're going to lose them on that call. And we all know that the way that you close high ticket sales is pretty much one call close. That's what we're always aiming for. Occasionally you're going to have a reason to make it a second call, but for the most part, by the time they get on this call, they're ready to make the decision. And so it's your job to control how that flows. It takes a little practice, but it's better for you, and obviously it's better for them. So another thing that you want to do during the questioning stage to really help you, because this is really helping you to control the end, so that when you actually make the offer, you're not going to have a whole bunch of objections coming up and the things that you don't have to start back into a big story again, is to plant the seed of doubt about them being able to do this without you. And so the way that you do that is by asking them right out, like, if you decide not to go forward with the program, assuming that this is a good program for you, what's your next course of action? Like, what's the solution that you have in the back of your mind if this is not the right thing for you? Do you have a plan for that? Because what you're doing at that point is you're really setting them up to realize that if they just keep doing what they're doing, it's not going to work because it hasn't worked yet. So when you do lay out an offer for them and you show them how it's going to work, and they've already agreed that there really is they have no other plan, then you're doing them a big service by, and obviously helping them to get to the decision. So again, the purpose of you controlling the call is that you do want to guide them to a point where the solution is obvious to them. there's a moment during the sales conversation when you make a shift from asking the questions, do a little recap, make sure that you understood the answers. And I call it the teaching moment. It's actually heart flow is a 9-step process. So each one of these boxes represents HEART, right? So right in the middle here is what I call the teaching moment. And what you want to do is you want to give them some information, very quick, short little tidbit of information that they didn't know, sort of an aha moment that really makes them see that, number one, they're not alone, that other people have had this same problem, and that you found a solution, that you've been able to help other people to get from A to Z. And so that teaching moment is a great transition to get to before you lay out your offer. Now, what I like about the teaching moment is it typically is a very big aha moment for them. And so then you connect in with their feelings. And typically, as soon as you do this right, where you've asked the questions right, you've heard them, they feel heard, you've moved them along to the teaching moment, they get the aha, and then you ask them how they feel about that. Most often, they're going to be like, the light bulb just came on. Like, I feel hope. I feel possibility. Like, I feel like you can really help me because you get me. And that's what you want them to come to. And then you move into your offer, which we will be talking about in another one of our Thursday afternoon trainings. So we are at the end of this one. I hope that this has given you some insight into how important it is to have a plan when you go into this these calls, and that the teaching moment is not a coaching session. So we want to avoid getting into coaching sessions. We want to avoid this concept of like, let's just explore what's going on and see if there's a fit, because that's not taking leadership. So there are times when you do have those kind of calls. And again, that's when you're on a call that's actually part of your marketing, right? It's a different, that's all about, maybe there's times when you have a call where it's like, let's talk about who I am and what my program's about, what I offer. Because again, I always say there's two things have to happen before a sale is going to be made. One is the prospect has to know the program works and know that they trust and want to work with you. And then the second thing is the question, will it work for me? And that's the sales conversation. So at that point, they already know that you have helped other people. You have a program that works. They just don't know that it's going to work for them. So that's what the sales conversation is all about. Okay, I always go over, but I'm only over by about 2 minutes, so I'm feeling good about that. I know I talk fast, and I could go on and on and on with this because this is, this is my thing. I love the sales aspect of helping people. Sales, sharing a life-enhancing solution. So I'll leave you with that, and I hope that I will hear from you. So if anybody, any of you out there feel the need to have a conversation, please reach out to me on Messenger. I'm happy to talk to you. And, it's all about relationships and who I'm connecting with, and trying to figure out the best way that I can help you, whether you're a sales person looking to be connected with my network of high-level coaches, consultants, service providers, or maybe you are somebody who is ready to look to be matched up with a salesperson and you want to talk to me about that, or maybe you just want to get better at selling. Either way, reach out, chat with me, reach me in Messenger, or book a call. You can book a call on my calendar at www.meetme.so/freedom shift. All right. Thanks for showing up. And I will be back next week, same time, same place. And we'll be talking about some other great aspect to closing more sales. All right. Bye for now.